know why. This is Vila Business Academy, and in this session we're going to talk about demographics. Demographics is always mysterious to people. A lot of people have a hard time understanding the mystery of demographics. Well, demographics is really simple. It's a description of your customers. That's it. It's a physical description of your customers. So if you think of that moving forward, it's going to be a lot easier for you to write a really good description of your customers through demographics. Traditionally, if you ask most people, they will say, what is demographics? And they'll say age and race and income, right? And those are all really great answers, and they're true. A lot of descriptions, those descriptions fit the description of demographics. Demographics is a little more than that. Demographics is more specific to your business. So you need to determine who is going to buy your products and services and what are the physical descriptions of them. It is going to be different for every person. Some businesses, age or race or income makes no mind. It doesn't matter what their age are, what their income status is, or what their race is for them to buy your products and services. It may be different descriptions that may describe your customers to you. So you need to look at your products and services and say, okay, get a visual impact? Who is going to buy your products and services? And then start writing those physical descriptions down. Let me give you a great example. One of my clients in the past has been a daycare. I've had actually several daycares, but this particular daycare owner was looking at growing her business. And we were looking at the demographics of her customers. Well, are her customers the children that go to her daycare, or her customers the parents? Well, we decided it was going to be much easier to market to the parents than it is to the children. So we decided to write a great description of her current customers. So she went through her customer base and wrote down the physicalities. This is how much they live, this is how much they earn, this is where they live, this is how old they are, and she had a broad range in her database. And I says, well, you're missing the most important factor. Let's go back to your customer base and say, what do they have in common? What are the common elements? We found that she had a much different common demographics than some other businesses might. A lot of her customers were double income, one working parent. What that meant is she had a lot of professionals that had had great careers and they were retiring and having children. They had had their great careers and waited to have children until they were a little older. So when we pulled that demographics and was really able to look at it, there was more common. She was pulling from specific neighborhoods and specific businesses. So the human resource department at one of her clients' husband's business was giving her out as a referral. Here's a great daycare for you. And so a lot of their clients were buying them. Long story short is, that was a hard demographics to pull. So when she started looking at that, that told her more. The priority was, it was high income. They had one single parent, or one, let me see this right, they had one parent at home with the children, but were still wanting daycare. So it was the extracurricular activities that was really pulling in her children. She was able to develop products and services that were specifically needs to this unique group, and she had a full house. So is that the same for every daycare? No. Typically, if you was to look at a daycare, you would say they'd be in their 21 to 27 years old, they would have 1 to 2 children, they'd be first in their working careers. That's a typical daycare demographics. Hers was radically different. So if she had done a marketing strategy, if she had done a lot of the other stuff that the other daycares were doing, she would not have pulled the right information. So the reason why it's so important for you guys to really understand your core demographics is that your demographics are going to be different than the demographics down the street. Your unique products and services are unique to you. Demographics are not the same across the board. So remember that moving forward. Defining your demographics is going to pull into your marketing strategy, into your products and services. It's really important that you understand your core demographics so that you can explain this to your vendors and the people that are going to help you with your marketing strategy. The first thing your marketing company is going to ask you is, who's your core demographics? That's the first question they'll ask you, because everything that they do is based on that. So you need to know that. It will also help to develop your products and services. And finally, it's going to help you with projected sales. So demographic helps you throughout your business. So keep that in mind as we move forward. The first thing you need to ask, how many consumers will buy your products and services? How many? How many are there? Is going to be 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000? How many people are going to buy your products and services? The next thing is, what will they buy? There's a range of products and services that they might buy. They may have an entry purchase. Some people have an entry purchase and then they buy other services as they move along. You also need to know how much they will buy of it. Will they buy a carton or a 6-pack or a 12-pack? So how many will they buy? And then the last question you need to ask is, how much will they pay for it? So this is unique to your business. So write these questions down. You're going to need to answer them as you go on. There are two main ways to market to your customers, to your potential customers, and to your consumers. The first is through mass marketing. And mass marketing is through the masses. The internet is the masses. Television, radio, those are all the masses. That's a huge number of people. Mass marketing is really about the numbers. You want to hit as many people as possible, but you get a very low return rate. Generally, it's 0.001% of the people that see you in a mass media way. So if you do advertising through television or radio and you think about the thousands and the millions of people who may hear about your products and services on the internet, there may be a very small amount of people who actually call you. If the majority of your demographics buy your products and services through radio and television, it's a good thing. You want to spend your marketing dollars on television and radio. If the majority of your demographics aren't going to be through radio and television, then you may want to conserve those funds and think of a different marketing strategy. The internet, the search engines, are mass media. There's some very famous ones. We have Yahoo, we have Google, we have Google Chrome. There are so many. There's more even every day. I can't even catch up with all of it. But what you need to know is that the search engines are out there and they're ready and they will provide information for you. But remember, if there's 10,000 businesses out there and you're only one of those in your industry, you have to work your way to the top. So search engine optimization and hiring the right marketing company to help you get up there on the board is really beneficial for you. If you're going to choose the internet as marketing, you'll want to hire a really great marketing firm that can help you with that process. Remember though, this is the masses. They're trying to reach as many possible people that can then call you for products and services. This is true for mass marketing. Mailers you get in the mail. How many get mailers in the mail? So all of those mailers, they get a really low rate of return, but they send a lot of them out, hoping to get a few. This is also considered passive marketing. Once you have the activity, once you do it, you have to wait. So once you do the television ad or the radio or the mass mailing or put your website out there, then you have to wait. There's nothing you can really do to encourage people to call you. So it's called passive. So the second way is to very narrowly target your market and be more selective with the information that you provide. So target marketing allows you to really focus and narrow in your demographics on your demographics. And you will write really great demographic descriptions of your customers and narrow that focus in and focus in on that narrow niche. This allows you to take all of the masses out and be very concentrated. Sometimes it's much easier for a small business to really focus on a very smaller group of individuals to sell to. It's easier to contact a list of 10 people or 20 people than it is 10 million people. Okay? And it's easier to do direct sales, meaning having a direct conversation with them and doing sales protocols. That is more interactive. Remember, every business is different. There's not one way that's right and one way that's not. It's going to be that's right for your business. Both of them are sound business practices. A lot of people do the mass mailing, the mass marketing. A lot of people do the very targeted. So you're going to have to decide what is going to be the best way to market to your demographics. Couple tips is know your customers, know your business, know your market. That's going to help you. By understanding you, your business, and your market, it's going to help you build the best marketing strategy for your business. I have a belief that most small businesses need a little bit of both. They need a little bit of mass marketing with your website, and they need a little bit of target-focused sales protocols. So Webster has a really great definition for what is demographics. And Webster says that it's the statistical characteristics of human populations. I think that is so true. It's the physical description. So think of that when you move forward. This is Jon Kyl, and he is a U.S. Senator. And I found this quote when during the campaigns, and I was looking at slogans and things like that. And I found this, and I didn't vote for him. I'm not from Arizona. I just liked this quote. I thought it was very good to describe demographics. And he says that human principles don't change, but demographics and other circumstances do, and so should our responses to them. So the good news is demographics, your business and your demographics may change over the time. And if our economy changes and your demographics change, your responses to them must change as well. So just like doing the research all the time, doing research on a regular basis, you're going to need to research your demographics as well. There's a lot of businesses that have migrated over the last 5 years and changed their core demographics. This is true in corporations. That's why we see a lot of scramble in corporations. It's true in small businesses as well. There's been a real transition in their customer bases. Who bought their products and services 10 years ago are no longer the same demographics that buy them today. And that's true in the corporate America, it's true in our small businesses as well. The more research we do on our demographics, the better it is that we can really understand and comprehend how to meet their demands. The earlier in your business structure that you define your customer, the more revenue you will build. So if it takes you 3 years to figure out who your customers are, those are 3 years of lost revenue, which may be the make or break of a business. So understanding and knowing who your customers are all starts with the demographics. A misdiagnosis can delay revenue and really cause havoc in a business. I've seen this in a lot in my crisis businesses that I do crisis coaching with. And if you can nail that down, it will be so much easier to build your marketing strategy, to build how you're going to sell your products and services, what products and services you're going to sell. It will make your life so much easier. So really, if you spend time and resources researching your demographics, it will really help you. As a business matures, this is true with every business, as a business matures, the customer base may shift a little bit. So I want you to keep your eye on the ball. If your sales go down after you've been in business, if your sales go down, start looking at your demographics, start looking at your customer base. It will really help you keep the revenue building throughout your business venture. Traditional demographics is described as age, income, education, ethnicity, and housing. Those are all just typical, standard, traditional demographics. But I think this is like the tip of the iceberg. I want you to really dive in and look at the physical description of your customers. If the more description that you have of your customers, the better off you can build a business venture. So I see this a lot with my entrepreneurs. They come up with a template that they've downloaded and they go, I filled this out. Here's my template for my demographics. And I'll say, okay, so let's talk about that. And we'll dig a little deeper. And I'll find out that they just wrote in the spaces. They didn't really look at the description of their customers. So for instance, they'll say age and they'll put the age in, but they won't add anything more. So I give you a template as well, but I don't want you to just write in the ones that I've provided you, because the way I provided you is the traditional template, the age, income, and those are all really important questions to ask, but there might be more for your business. So think about and envision who your customer is going to be and write those physical descriptions down. It may be the traditional and it may not be. You need to come up with that. So I'm going to give you the template, write the top down, but keep diving down. Get a better description. Once you've defined all of those, then we'll go to the very next step. Once you have defined what the physical description of your customers are, I want you to go back and prioritize it. Say, this is the most important thing about my customers. This is the next most important thing about my customers. What that's going to do is going to help you decide what's the most important factor. It may be age, and it may not be. And it may be housing, and it may not be. Let me give you a really great example of how demographics and what I learned about demographics years ago. When I was doing real estate, I had a gentleman who was a family friend, and I knew him for many years. And he bought and sold strip malls, and he was a phenomenal man. And he called me up one day, and he asked me to meet him in front of this particular strip mall. And I went over. He was thinking about buying a strip mall. And I went over and had a conversation with him, and he had a little notebook. And I said, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm writing down everybody that walks down the street. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, I'm trying to figure out the demographics of this area. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah, I'm making a list. And he showed it to me. And was a lady and her dog walked by, and he wrote what the lady looked like and what kind of dog she had. And he counted all of the cars that went by. And he did this for hours. He did it in the morning, he did it in the evening, he did it in the afternoon, and he was keeping track. He did it on the weekends versus the weekdays. And the reason is he was going to have a huge investment in buying this strip mall. And he was going to have to determine what kind of businesses to put in this strip mall. And he determined that it would be much easier to pull people off the street and sell them products and services than to recruit them into that area. And he drove around that area, and he looked at other businesses and schools and churches and facilities that were nearby. And he pulled a list of people that he thought would buy in his shop. And that wasn't even based on products and services. That was based on location. He was trying to pull people into that strip mall, business owners into that strip mall, based on the demographics that he had at hand. The next thing he did, which really surprised me, is he went all around town and found that the demographics for that was children. There was a lot of children in the area. There was a wonderful daycare down the street. There was a great pediatric. There was a playground. There was a dog park. There was a park. There was a lot of services for children in that area. So he went around town and talked to business owners that had services for children. Haircut place, a clothing store, candy shop. It was a lot of different ones. And so when he bought that building, he already knew what leases he was going to lease to, who he was going to lease to. He had it rented out before he bought it. That was pretty smart, because he knew one thing. If my small businesses that I put in this strip mall, if they're successful, they're going to pay the rent, right? So he bought the strip mall, and he revamped it, and it was beautiful. beautiful, charming. He put walkways, and he did beautiful flowers and lighting, and he diverted traffic. Actually, the walk traffic is, there's still a walkway out on the road, but he made it so beautiful and fun to walk down in front of the shops versus out on the road. So all those little kids and all those families and the people walking with dogs, they didn't walk along the street. What they did is they walked around by his beautiful shops. So do you think he recruited business for his small businesses? Absolutely he did. And so then he decides he's going to have a grand opening, and he encouraged me to help him, so I did. And he called the local school. There was a school right down the street, and he says, I'd like your school band to come and do my grand opening, and I'll give you a donation. And what kind of donation do you want for that? So the school came, they gave him a donation to band, and I go, why did you choose band? And he goes, band's always available, short notice, Janelle. That's what he told me. So he did. He had the band come and the firemen come, and we had this great big grand opening, and we were fully, all the stores were full. And I was visiting with one of the owners of one of the shops, and it was a clothing store, and it was really cute. They had like little Hansel and Gretel outfits for the kids. They were so charming. But I was talking to her at length. They were European clothes for children. I was talking to her, and she says, she says, if I hadn't come here, I would be out of business. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, in the other location, I was in a bad location. I couldn't bring people in. Everybody was giving up on me. And she says, I was about ready to give up. And he came in my store, told me I was just in the wrong location. And she says, through the last 2 weeks we've been open, I made more money than I made in a year in the other location. So it tells you a couple of things about location. It also tells you about demographics. The one thing that man understood is demographics are really important. And it's easier to understand your demographics than it is to fight your demographics. So I encourage you to embrace your demographics. So just like this man did, he wrote a list of all of the attributes and all of the people that he could sell to. And he started writing a physical description of that. You need to do that same thing. Write a physical description. What do your customers look like? What do they like? Where do they go? What do they want? I'm going to tell you one more story about 2 coffee houses. And this will really help you with demographics. I was selling land in Utah when I was doing my real estate, and I was selling land in Utah. And a gentleman wanted me to sell his land, and he had a corner of land. And I said, okay. And he says, I want to sell everything but the front corner. Well, if you know anything about real estate, front corner is really important part of the deal. You don't necessarily want to give that up. And I said, why do you want to keep that corner market? And he says, I want to build a coffee house like that one across the street. And I turned across the street, and there was the Coffee Divas. And the Coffee Divas was a wonderful little shop. I used to go there all the time. They had the best coffee, and they were wonderful ladies. And the Coffee Divas had really fun names to their coffees. They were all the frou-frou coffees, and they all had really fun names. And they wore tiaras, and they had those long evening gloves that women used to wear with baubles sewn to them. So they in the wintertime, when they would have to stick their arms out of the windows to serve the coffee, they would still stay warm. But it looked really cute. They were charming women. There was 4 of them owners. There were 4 owners there, and they were charming, charming women. And they were outrageous and fun and expensive. It was expensive to buy coffee there. And I thought, and I looked at this farmer, and I thought, oh, geez. You're going to dress in a diva with a hat and a tour and all these long gloves. And he says, no, no, no. He goes, I'm just going to sell coffee, just a cup of joe. And I went, huh? And I go, I don't think this is a good idea for you. And he goes, oh, I've got it handled. And I says, all right, all right. So the Coffee Divas were extremely successful in their business. There was always a long line for coffee. And the little Cup of Joe built a rackety old shack for a cup of joe. And he sold just coffee. And you could get coffee with cream and sugar. And that was it. And he sold down the street from a very large construction project. And the Divas sold right across the street, up the street from a university, a subset of a university. So there was lots of college students. There was schools nearby. There was lots of activity, a shopping mall. So they were in a good location. He was in a good location. They were in the same location though, but they were pulling different demographics is right. So they were pulling way different demographics. So Cup of Joe would sit out there and they would race those construction guys right through. They could probably serve 10 people to one carload for the Coffee Divas because it took a lot more to do the froof and the Pam. The truth is marketing materials are really expensive. So the little sticker and the cute stuff that the Coffee Divas did a really great job doing was expensive. I am betting, and I haven't seen the cost analysis, but I would bet that Cup of Joe made probably more money than the Coffee Divas did. And they were across the street. So if you're just selling coffee, you're just selling coffee, right? Well, not necessarily. Who you're going to sell coffee to is way more important than just selling coffee. So think about that when you're building your demographics. I had a doctor in a day spa that hired me to come in, and they had spent a lot of money revamping, redoing their front office and their back spa, and they had spent a lot of money in marketing materials and revamping, and it was beautiful. And it was really chic, very high-end, and very few customers. And it was beautiful. It was in a great location. I'm thinking, what is going on? So I went in and we looked around and they had a beautiful picture of a woman's back. It was a day spa and it was naked. It was a naked back and it was huge and it came to the top of her cheeks in the back. And I thought, wow, that's really a big billboard. And it was right at the front entry. You could see it on the street and you could see it in his shop. And he says, I don't know, I've spent a ton of money. I've got these marketing people have come and spent all their money. I've spent all my money and no customers. And so we started doing some market research. And the first thing I did was go around to the other businesses and say, tell me what the scoop is about that business over there. Wow, look at that lady. And this is what I heard. Yeah, the kids won't walk on the street anymore because the parents won't let them. They were offended. It was a very conservative community. The community where the doctor put the building and the big poster of the woman was very conservative. And the shop was really edgy. Is edgy bad? Absolutely not. Edgy isn't bad. But if all of the people on the street and all the conversation around him that's going on is about wow, and not a good wow, then it was really it was not advantageous for him to have that edginess to his building. So we talked a lot and we met with his marketing company and we did some more research and we decided to soften his edge a little bit. Were we able to get sales? Yeah, but it was slower. It was a slow growth. We had to really build in our community because it was a very conservative, community-oriented little community. It wasn't a big metropolitan city. So he'd come from a metropolitan city and had that city edginess and come to a country town with a small town mentality. It didn't work. So we had to do a lot of repairs with really building relationship within his own community. So I've given you some really good examples how the demographics, not really understanding your demographics, can be advantageous for us and not work so well. So remember, spend some time, do good research on your demographics. I promise you it'll be worth it. The next two we're going to talk about is the TAP analysis, target audience profiling, and the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. My name's Janelle White. I'm with Vila Business Academy. I look forward to seeing you in the next session.